everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. I'm out of breath. John Suttress here. I am happy to welcome Cecil Castellucci to Word Balloon. Good to see you,
Hello.
Cecil.
Hi, good to see you too.
Thanks for playing a couple weeks ago on that Friday for, I always hate to say it, John Con. That was the Bensons who called it John Con, but just the hangout that we all did.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like I was saying to you backstage that it was nice to have it be like a dead dog party for a dead dog that never happened.
Yeah, that was the intent, obviously, and I'm glad it worked out. Everybody was great. I'll tell people you have to watch when Cecil popped on. She had one of the best stories of the night when she was talking. We were talking about horror movies and how Cher subjected you to Nightmare on Elm Street when you were a kid.
It's true. It's true. It's very true. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was fantastic. I can appreciate. I know. And then we all started telling more stories, and you're like, stop! It's freaking me out.
I don't like horror films.
I don't either, buddy. Believe me, I don't. I understand. So, there you go. Hello, Matthew. Good to see you. How are you? Thank you very much. And Jesse's already checking in. We got a lot of people already watching. Man, you got a full dance card. You got a lot going on. I know you're kicking ass on Batgirl.
Thank you.
And we've been we were talking before we started to broadcast. And first of all, I loved the Oracle story that you did, and I thought that was terrific. And I just love the way that they've been able to bring Oracle back and still be, and then that Oracle is still part of Barbara's story.
Yeah.
Through the reboot and everything. But yeah, this AI really does kind of have her number.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because, when you're, I came into Batgirl on a crossover event, The Year of the Villain, and that's obviously, a challenge. And then, they had sort of constructed this idea of this Oracle character, which, is a little bit loaded, and how do you do that when you want to make sure that it's not taking away from the great character of Oracle that Barbara is, and so I really wanted it to be a lesson for her in having to make different kinds of choices because Oracle, the AI robot, knows how she thinks and can process that really quickly. And so I guess that's a spoiler for everyone. But so I really, even though I was a part of The Year of the Villain, and it ties into that, I really wanted it to be its own sort of journey for Barbara into what I loosely call, that nobody else calls it at all, her year of yes, where she kind of like has to do things a bit differently than she normally would, or view things a little bit differently in order to make sure that she can never be tripped up by her own tactics again.
Cool. That's awesome. And also, forgive me, because honestly, I hadn't been reading the book, and I don't know if the relationship with Jason Bard started with you or that was another thing that you inherited. But tell me about their relationship.
Sure. So Jason Bard came in during Margaret Scott's beautiful run. She did a great run, and he was kind of introduced in there, and they kind of had like a little spark, sort of hate, but hate being not so far from love, like a passionate kind of, and obviously for those of you who don't know, Jason Bard, was not very cool with her dad. And, sort of did some bad things to Gotham and to Jim Gordon. And Batgirl was pissed, and she threw him off a building, and his leg was injured. But, so I knew, obviously I know everybody loves Babs Dick, as a couple.
Sure.
But he's off the table. He's Rick.
Right.
He was Rick, right? Or,
right.
So
whatever he is right now.
Yeah. And I think comics work best when there's a slight romantic something. And so it just seems sort of like the natural course. And if you know the history of Batgirl, which, I did a lot of reading, he is her first boyfriend in, the Batgirl, her original run. Jason Bard is like the coolest, nicest, most down to earth, most like feminist friendly, guy. I mean, he's amazing, and so I tried to imagine that the core of Jason Bard that I inherited, that was somewhere deep down in his core, and that's how I sort of make it work.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think it's been really interesting, but it also tied in nicely to my idea of do things that you normally wouldn't do in order to not ever be tripped up by your own tactics. And, Jason Bard is the last person on earth that she would ever sort of even give half a chance to. And so I think that's part of her necessary growth.
And then reading, Batgirl 47. Well, first, regarding that in her past, were those Frank Robbins stories of Batgirl way back, 70s?
I think
kind
so,
of original?
Yeah, original. Yeah.
No, I, again, old enough to remember reading that stuff when it was coming out, so I can appreciate that. That's awesome. No, I love, honestly, I think Jason Bard is really a great Bat Universe character, and I'm always glad when he pops up in the stories and stuff. So that's terrific. So so Batman 47, or Batgirl 47, pardon me. The Joker stuff again. I love, and I just talked to Jurgens about this and what he's doing in Nightwing. This Joker war is really interesting because I like the idea that really the Joker kind of knows all of them and knows all of them really inside and out, and really does know how to push all their buttons. And certainly Barbara and the Joker have had this going on since Killing Joke and everything. And Killing Joke's kind of how do you view the original story? Is it kind of a kind of story?
I mean, it's problematic.
Yes, well, there you go. That was the word I was going to use.
Super problematic. And, and I wrote an essay about it on the DC blog. One of the big problems with the Killing Joke and with the fact that it seems like everybody keeps going back to that well to torture Barbara and Batgirl, with that, is that it really feels like everyone uses it as a device to service the male characters. And Barbara, even in the Killing Joke, doesn't have agency over her own story. She's not the center of the story. She's just a MacGuffin for Jim Gordon and Batman. And continuously throughout the Bat universe, sorry to throw everybody under the bus, I mean, except for like Gail Simone, basically, he is used to consistently torture and traumatize her, and constantly make it so that moment is sort of the only moment, and I just sort of felt like, I had a long talk with Jessica Chen, my editor, and I just said, look, if Joker has her number and he's going to knock on her door, she has to be ready for him, like somewhere in the back of her mind. Like people who have been through a trauma and have survived and thrived after that trauma, the way that Barbara Gordon has. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think she's one of the most, resilient, probably the most resilient Bat family person, I
agree.
She goes to therapy, she figures her shit out, So I said, I think she needs to be ready for him. Like that we need to make it so that it's like she's going to confront him and she's going to be the center of her own story, even if it is in service of the Joker war. And so, and so then Robbie Rodriguez, who's a wonderful artist that I worked with, him and I and Jessica hopped on the phone and we had like a long discussion about how could we sort of make it feel claustrophobic like the Killing Joke, but also make it uniquely our own and sort of shift the lens on it. And I mean, I think that's what I like doing with stuff in the DC universe, with Shade, with Female Furies, is to kind of, maybe sometimes it's a little esoteric or subtle, but like try to just shift the POV a little bit to sort of bring it more in line with a female point of view.
Understood. No, and I agree. And I also think, you mentioned Gail, and I always loved that fight that in Birds of Prey that Barbara, while still in the chair, had with Spy Smasher, and how capable Barbara was. And it's like, nothing stops her.
Absolutely.
Nothing. And you're right. And honestly, I do think that was the beneficial evolution of Barbara post Killing Joke, that Absolutely. She is tough. And then, yeah, you know.
And I mean, you know, I feel like Barbara knows how to fight with her legs or without them. Like she has them back because of the implant, but she doesn't need the implant to be a hero, to be a superhero, to be a Batgirl. Like she can fight from any level, you know, brains, brawn, you know, from floor to rooftop, you know.
Absolutely.
So I think that was really important, and I think that I think we get that across, you know. And obviously, there's a big choice that she makes, and you know, and basically, I didn't want the Joker to be in control of her. I wanted her to make the decision about her own body, which I think is something that we women are always talking about, you know, like, yeah. So I think it works on a number of different levels.
Well, I think he succeeded, and the tease is out for 48. So we see the consequences of that fight. And that was, you know, it was terrific. Both, I like, you know, Bendis always says, we've seen fights a million times, but it's the conversations that happen during the fights that make the difference. And I do think you achieved that in 47. And so now in 48, I mean, you know, is it okay to say that, you know, the consequences of 47? Sure. Okay, well, yeah, sure. I mean, that
whatever you think, you know.
So I assume, well, I mean, I saw the pages on CBR that Barbara's back in the wheelchair now because of that fight with the Joker. And, you know, so, and, you know, it's temporary, I suppose, but yeah, well, okay. You know,
I'm not going to spoil anything, but
I understand.
But, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's amazing, and here people are already praising you for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Batgirl 47 was elegantly done. Thank you for handling Barbara so well. Yeah. Agreed.
Thank you.
And hey, Mark Andreko's watching. That's nice.
Hi, Mark.
Good to see you, Mark. Man, here's a question from Ben Hayes. Since Batgirl is ending, what new book can I see your beautiful art on? Or I guess your beautiful writing, but that's art as well. Writing.
Well, there's something that I have that is not announced yet, not on DC. It's just like a sort of one-shot thing that I'm pretty excited about. Cool. And then there is for the this was already announced. It's just a short story, but there is one of the young adult books for DC Comics. They're doing something about Wonder Women, like, you know, real women who are amazing. And so I got to do one about an astronaut. If anybody knows me, they know that I'm a really huge space enthusiast.
We'll be talking about that in this conversation. That's great to hear.
I got to write a little mini biography of Ellen Ochoa, who was the head of. She's an astronaut. She's the first Latina in space, and she also was the first head of Johnson Space Center. You know, woman and head of that. So she's kind of amazing. Yeah. And if anybody, like I said, if anybody knows me, it's like, I mean, I'm friends with an astronaut. I love everything about outer space. Like, I woke up at 4 a.m. the other night to watch the launch. Like, I'm that girl. So yeah, I mean, I think my biggest trouble with that was that I had so much information in there about her, like so much that they were like, whoa, this is, you gotta like scale it back a little bit. Like, but I was like, how could we cut anything? Everything she does is interesting. And she went to space. I think one of my favorite things that Ellen Ochoa did was, it was her third mission, and she knew that she was going to be on the space shuttle. They were on the construction crew for the International Space Station. And she was also on like some woman's task force, you know, in, I don't know, congressional task force. And so she managed to get a suffragette flag that women had used during the suffragist march to get the vote. And she brought it into space, and her and the 3 other women unfurled it on the International Space Station. And it was just like, I mean, the coolest, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. My God. Do you have Apple TV?
I do. And have I watched? Yeah, of course.
For All Mankind. Come on.
Of course. For All Mankind. I like,
man. I honestly,
yeah.
And I know you've had conversations with Kelly Sue DeConnick as well. I'm like, you've got to get Apple TV. I'm like, it's amazing. It's such a good show.
I love it. And I love a good sort of revisionist history of things, because I think it makes us look at what actually happened in history in a completely different way. And you kind of see the zigs and the zags and where and how things could have gone. Yeah, I think it's a great show.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Ron Moore fan since, when he was with Star Trek, for God's sake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
And Galactica was amazing.
Yeah,
so when I heard about the producers and also the initial tease, all it was what if the Russians beat us to the moon?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's intriguing enough.
Yeah.
And then the direction that it went into.
Yeah, no.
And essentially it is the women's version of The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so like, that is a great idea. And it's just, oh my God, just the way the as you know, the directions it goes into. And I'm really glad that I ended up getting Apple TV.
Yeah. Wait. I just want to mention, because I hate when writers don't mention their artist, that the artist on that Wonder Woman thing is Karina Guevara, and she it was really great because obviously Ellen is Latina, and I wanted to make sure that I was working with a Latina artist, and so I got her on Twitter. Like, I did a Twitter call, and Karina's art is just absolutely gorgeous. And there's one shot where she basically draws my Right Stuff, which is, all the women astronauts. and it's gorgeous.
That's great. That's fantastic. No, I was watching the For All Mankind panel, the Comic-Con panel, and saw the clips
I should watch that for the new season.
For next season.
Yeah. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll come back. We'll talk more astronauts, but I want to talk more about your books and everything, and also get in some more questions. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Maximo Vega, I first discovered you when I bought Female Furies, and I followed your work ever since. Well, there's a good transition. We should talk about that.
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you, boy, who was your artist again on Female Furies?
The wonderful Adriana Mello was my artist. She's just incredible. And I think her and I really felt a big calling and responsibility with, first of all, following in Kirby's footsteps, and also, taking care of the Female Furies.
Were you the first Fourth World female writer?
I don't think so. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like somebody would have said that.
Because Starlin, I know Jim Starlin had a good run, and Walt Simonson, of course, there's Orion series. I was really trying to think in terms, and obviously Tom with what he's doing with Mr. Miracle and everything.
Maybe.
Yeah, I kind of think you are. I don't know.
Well,
and if not, you certainly did a lot with those characters.
Thank you. If I am, then if me and Adriana ever get an omnibus, which I'm sure we won't, but if we ever do, then we'll make sure to have that on there somewhere.
You did 6 issues. Is there a chance they'd go back and let you do more?
I kind of feel like that story is ended.
Okay.
Like, I feel like, I wish I had like Tom 12 to tell it in. But I'm glad I got 6, but there are a couple of sort of things at the end that I feel like you never have enough pages, and so I wish I had like 5 or 6 more pages just to kind of take a breath, at the end there. Sometimes I love a splash page, a moment where you could pause, a nice double page spread. And sometimes when you're packing in a lot of story, you can't really get there. So no, I feel like me and Adriana we told the story we wanted to tell, which was basically this sort of feminist awakening of women who become sensitive and aware of systemic misogyny and try to smash the patriarchy, and also basically it's the love story of Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, of Scott and Barda. That's basically the story that we were telling. And if anybody's curious, or really who is a character in My Female Furies, she is a character in the original Mr. Miracle, and it's Mr. Miracle issue number 9 that tells her story, and that's the issue and there is no love story between Scott and Barda without O'Reilly, because that's when they meet. Their meet cute is when Barda's trying to rescue O'Reilly, and everything that happens to her in Mr. Miracle number 9, Kirby's version, is what happens to her in me and Adriana's book. So I took that issue and just sort of blew it out from there into a 6-issue thing. And I feel like Kirby left a lot of room about the story that wasn't being told about Granny and about the female Furies. And I feel like him and I would have a good conversation over a whiskey about it. You know, we might not agree on everything, but like he'd get what I was trying to do. And, you know, I think times have changed enough that he would have been savvy enough to like sort of understand what I was doing. But I think trying to do a book about the Me Too movement on Apocalypse it was important.
Agreed. And it was, I think, very eye-opening. And I think if Jack maybe didn't get where you were coming from, I think Roz would have figured it out and helped him along. Honestly,
I feel like he would have gotten it, though.
I think so too. I'm teasing.
I think he would have gotten it.
No, and it's honestly, I loved. I mean, the New Gods are great, and obviously, the name explains a lot of their influences, and I just love the Roman patriarchy feel. Yeah. That's already there, but that you certainly exploited as well. And Granny, you know, I'm a huge I Claudius fan.
Yeah,
that British series, the Robert Graves story that they did so well in British TV, and I see a lot of Livia in Granny Goodness.
Totally. And I mean, like, you know, for me, the big moment with Granny, one thing that I really felt was that, you know, Granny was the only woman in the room. And she didn't get her due. And then she was given the job to be the mother to the orphans. And I just sort of felt like, what does that do to you? You know? And how do you try to cling to power like that? And then how do you resent the women that you've given power to that you were denied? You know, it's like this whole thing. That I thought, you know, like, was really, I also wrote an essay for the DC blog about Granny Goodness.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, that's my thing, I guess. Like, I write these things and I'm like, I'm going to write a feminist essay about it for the DC
I think
blog,
that's terrific.
You know?
That's wonderful.
So yeah, I feel like Granny is one of the most tragic characters. And I think, I think she is just, to me, I feel have such empathy and sympathy for her, even though I think she's really horrible person.
Well, and again, I think you explain a lot of her motivations and what she was denied and what obviously pushed her into taking the job of being in charge of the orphanage and turning it into its own seat of power.
Yeah.
And the way that she's been able to weaponize these women, but also regret that she can't be out there on the front lines. Yeah, doing what she's clearly capable of doing as well. Robbie's checking in. And,
hi, Robbie.
There you go. Good to see you, Robbie.
5 stars, agreed. 5 stars. Would recommend working with Robbie to a friend as well. I was just talking, Robbie, about, I don't know if you heard, but about us trying to deconstruct the Killing Joke, and like, you know, and what a great job you did in and sort of reframing some of those claustrophobic moments that echo the original. So thank you. I think it was just such a great collaboration there.
Agreed. Robbie, well done. Absolutely. Yeah. No, and man, it's been a long time since I've seen Robbie, so I'm glad he's doing well. You know, and again, I'm glad he's finding good collaborators like yourself to keep thriving and doing wonderful work. Let's see here.
So I think someone asked about the Disney film. So I don't know if if anybody knows, but one of my quarantine projects has been, and this comes from one of my other collaborators, this guy Jose Pimienta, who did Soupy Leaves Home with me. Him and his girlfriend were rewatching. They're both they do storyboards for animation as well, and so they were rewatching all the Disney animated movies in order. And I said, I'm going to do one step further. I'm going to watch every Disney movie that ever came out, every feature film in order. So I'm on number 72 now, and there's about 420.
Which one is number 72?
So actually, it might be number 71. I think it might be number 71. But I just watched it today. It was called A Tiger Walks, and I'd never heard of it, and I thought it was going to be one of the lame, animal movies that they have that I don't like the narrators and it's super boring and whatever. But it was actually 1964.
Go on.
It was actually about a tiger that gets loose in a town and sort of terrorizes this town. And the sheriff, there's an election going on, and the governor and a sheriff are going to be elected maybe. And then they have to deal with this tiger. And then there's this man from India who is like trying to say, here's how we catch the tiger. And of course, nobody's listening to him. And then the teenage girl listens to him and is like, Dad, this is how we catch the tiger. And then she goes on television and kind of like speaks her piece. And then the youth of America go into revolt. And then the governor sends in the National Guard. And I was like, wait a minute, this feels very, very timely,
Yeah, and the last thing you'd expect from Disney, obviously.
Yeah, it was really kind of fascinating. And, I've been watching a lot of these movies, and their track record on, fully realized characters, especially characters that are by POC, is not very good. But in this one, it was actually, the Ram Singh, the lion trainer, was actually sort of well-rounded, as much more so than all the other films I've watched so far. And
sure.
And so it was really actually great. You can't find the movie. It's not really very easily found. I found it through ways on the internet.
So it's not on Disney Plus?
No, it's not on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And a lot of the ones that aren't on Disney Plus, you can usually find on Vudu, or, you can rent on Amazon Prime, or, whatever. But this one was not available. So I had to dig a little deeper and get it. But well worth the watch. That's what I'm up to.
Are you aware of Katrina Longworth and You Must Remember This, the old Hollywood podcast?
Actually, that was very important because, one of the films that I watched like 40 films ago was Song of the South. And
absolutely.
I was like, which I also found through, you can't find that easily.
Yeah, seriously, like, would you have to buy like an import DVD or
I'll message you and tell you.
All right, I was going to say probably the hidden web. Well, I've seen it. I've seen it years ago, but
So, for the record, it's awful. I mean, it's just the most offensive thing you've ever seen in your life. I do not recommend anybody watching it at all. I highly recommend.
I would say, from a context standpoint, that it is. Well, no, but and then you'll forgive me, but honestly, to show that there was a dark side to Walt and a very side to Walt. So, from a film history standpoint, that's the only reason why I think it's, again. But I would agree in terms of. Know what you're watching.
Yeah, I would. I definitely, when I was set to watch it, I asked around for academic papers of film historians so that I could point to, things to have it in context as I was watching it. And I didn't, I usually tweet sort of about the movie, and that one I was like, I'm not going to tweet about this movie because I don't have anything to say about it. But what I did tweet was the You Must Remember This podcast. That was an excellent breakdown. It's a 6-episode breakdown of Song of the South. And it's really, really gives such good context for having watched the film. So that was great.
Yeah.
But
that's amazing that you're doing that, though. That's fantastic. And you're literally, I was born in 64. So you're hitting my, my wheelhouse.
So here's the thing is that, like, I feel like when I'm done with all of this, I'm going to be a real expert on Disney films because I'll have watched them all in order. So it's like, I'm trying to think of, like, am I going to write an essay? Am I going to do I'm going to do something because I feel like I'm going to have all this knowledge and I'm going to want to talk about it. So that's that.
That's outstanding. Seriously. All right, I'm looking at more questions because I do want to because people are really chiming in. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I know. I'm so, you know what? My ring light went out, so I'm just gonna dip and pull this light over because I feel like it's getting dark. So I'll be right back.
No problem, and it'll give me a chance to look at some questions here.
Oh, shit.
Careful, buddy. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Oh, here. Oh, good. Now, Haishim Zubi says, I think Rachel Pollack did a run on the New Gods back in the day.
All right. There you go.
So you can see the point that Haishim Zubi just made, that perhaps.
Yes. I knew there was someone.
Okay.
I knew there was another lady. I was like, who was it? But then in my mind, I was like, oh no, they did Doom Patrol. But no, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I knew it.
And here after Shade, I was curious if there are any other Vertigo era concepts that Cecil wants to give a new spin on. Now, I am curious about Shade in terms of was that assignment brought to you, or did you want to do that and presented that to the Young Animal imprint and everything?
No, that was a Gerard thing. Gerard had it as a character that he wanted to do for Young Animal, and for that, Shelley Bond at the time was working with Gerard on Young Animal, and he had it was just one sentence. It said, for Shade, it was Shade the Changing Girl. Shade possesses 16-year-old girl who's the biggest bully in her school. And that was all the direction I had. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I got this. And I think it was like when I met Gerard and I said, well, she's a bird. And he was like, oh yeah, Cecil's got this, So
English idiom, she's a bird, or she's a
the alien of Loma Shade she's a bird, like she's an avian.
Oh, okay.
She's a bird. And so so it was this idea that it's sort of this bird in a human body on top of there being madness. So it's like very, very difficult. But to answer your question, I think there's sort of a glimmer of like Animal Man that I think I would be interested in doing something with. Cool. Like I love that concept. So I'm going to say that one. I mean, there are probably a few others, but like, but I think that's a good one. I don't really have any vague idea of like what I would do exactly, and I don't know if it would be him or the daughter, but like, because I think I'd probably want to make it a woman or a girl, but I think that there's, there's something there that would be intriguing to me.
That's cool. And also, I remember Jerry Conway did a great Last Days of Animal Man miniseries years ago, and he had aged the character up a little bit, so his son and daughter were young adults at that point.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah, it could be cool.
I wouldn't mind seeing Buddy's daughter getting the power and what she might do with it and everything. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, and I feel like it's got environmental themes that I'd be interested in, and, sort of save the planet kind of vibes. I'm into that.
How many more issues have you got left of Batgirl? 48's coming up.
Just 50. 50 is.
It's all right. It's going to end at 50. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's here. Let's see. Now here's an interesting question. I'm sure you can't answer it. The finale of Batgirl is an end of a history or a new beginning for Barbara. Yes, indeed. There we go. Well, something to look forward to. Oh, and here's Isham has a comment about Song of the South. It's awful, but I was really curious about it for years because how it broke new ground combining live action animation. Well, that's certainly true from a technical standpoint. It is the tone deafness of it again that is shocking, and really, Katrina really did such a great job in those 6 episodes, breaking it down from so many angles. I mean, literally everything, writing it, the actors, Disney's tone deafness and what he thought he was doing, and I think and also that it was revived so many. Goddamn, I remember in the 80s when it came back.
I think if you just listen to Katrina's podcast, then you'll get answers to those kinds of questions about the groundbreaking stuff, and you can listen to that without having to watch it because you don't want to watch that part. No, I get it. I can appreciate that. Yeah, sure. Again, honestly, Cecil, I'll tell you, I don't want to talk about Song of the South anymore.
Okay. And honestly, I was just going to say in terms of stuff, the troubling subjects of some of these movies and stuff, I almost think, if you don't learn the lessons from them, you might be doomed to repeat them. And I don't mean that in any, like watch this, but it's like, be aware of it. Be aware of what they did. I don't know.
Yes, but also I think it's like we've come to a certain point in our journey on Earth, as a community that just take a look around and you'll know sort of what is okay and what is not okay. And
sure.
and I think that I think we can move forward from some of these things. But I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's move on from that because
we'll keep it light, I promise.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think it's interesting, but it's like I just feel like I mean, look, just to go back to Killing Joke, right? Killing Joke is very problematic on a lot of levels, and there is no reason for like that. Like when you go back and you read that issue, it's horrifying and it's unacceptable in many, many, many ways. There are so many things about it that are, I mean, you could never write that now.
No, absolutely not.
And it hurts my eyeballs to go back and look at it. It hurts my soul, and as a woman, it's really traumatizing, to read that book. I would not have gone back and read it unless I were doing something that was doing a direct response to it. But even doing so, it was like, ugh, the worst.
No, I understand. And seriously, again, it's easy for me to nod, middle-aged white guy going, yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But no, I as much as I can appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, here, let's move on because I remember when Shelley did the Minx line of graphic novels back in the day.
Yep.
And I remember when Plain Janes came out. And in fact, you talked to my buddies from the Around Comics podcast, another Chicago comic book podcast.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah.
So I remember that. And man, I'll tell you, working with two of my favorite people in comics, Jim Rugg and Shelley Bond.
I mean, the best. They're the ones who brought me into this this madness that we call the comics industry. Shelley, thank you forever. And Jim Rugg, I mean, Jim was he's an amazing person, an amazing collaborator. And I just feel so, I mean, I have to honestly say all the artists that I've gotten to work with have been just absolutely extraordinary. I feel really, really lucky. Like Marley Zarconi on Shade the Changing Girl. And, but Jim he was my first one. And I remember I writing comics was different than writing novels. And I remember calling him crying one day and just being like, I don't know how to move from panel to panel. I don't know how, like, I feel trapped and claustrophobic. And he was like, you know what, Cecil, I'm your swim buddy. So why don't you write whatever crazy thing you want on the page, and it's my job to figure it out. And then I just started thinking of the scripts as a sort of letter, almost a love letter to the artist.
Sure.
Because, and it's a little different when you're doing a monthly superhero comic because there's not time to, like, as with a graphic novel or, with a sort of more creator owned project. But that's sort of my, my sort of stance. I look at the script as a scaffolding so that the artist that I'm working with doesn't have to do all of the mental heavy work, but they, should always feel free to throw out what I've done panel wise and, and rebuild it as they see fit, like they get what I'm going for. And I have to say that really worked very well with Robbie because I accidentally did, I think it was for issue 48. I accidentally put in 2-page 17s. Oops. And nobody noticed it. And so there's 21 pages in my 20-page comic book.
Oh, shit.
And then, it was really bad. And then it was really important. And I was so proud of myself because I was like, wow, like I really had the time to like tease this scene out and give it room to breathe and like whatever. And then it was like, oh no, it's because you added an extra page. That's why you had that extra moment to like really take your time. And Robbie, bless his heart, was like, Cecil, like texting me, I think there's trouble. And I was like, oh no. And so then him and I had like an exchange. And I was like, okay, here's what's important, and he was like, okay. And I was like, you can cut this, you can cut this, you can cut this. And he was like, okay, but this is the parts that I like. So let me figure it out. I'll come up with a new layout. And that's a great collaboration. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're telling the story properly, the artist knows what you're going for, what emotional beat you're going for. And if something like that happens, if something comes up, they can swing with that because they know sort of what the story is that you're trying to tell. So I owe, when we can go back to reality, I owe Robbie a top shelf whiskey.
There you go. Absolutely, man. And no, and I like Jim's analogy of swim buddy. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the thing. You guys are literally collaborators. So I think that's terrific. Now here, John Swimmer says, thanks. And I know he means for Girl on Film.
Yes. Thank you.
So yeah. Talk about that. That's your kind of autobiographical comic.
Yeah. So Girl on Film is it's a autobiography of my life, and it's with 4 artists: John Berg, V. Gagnon, Melissa Duffy, and Vicky Lita. And it's basically, when I was growing up, I wanted to be the world's greatest filmmaker, and every single choice that I made as a young artist was to become the world's greatest filmmaker, film director. And obviously I completely failed on that. But the point of it being that, like, you go on an art journey as an artist, and art takes you where you want to go, where it wants you to go. You end up having an art life, in some fashion, even if it's not the path that you think that you went on, you find the path that you're on. And
Great.
And then one of the things, so it's split up into 3 parts. And, so for example, the Cher story, Chaz Bono was one of my best friends in high school, and as was Jennifer Aniston. And, for those of you who like picture books, Mo Willems, who does Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. He was my freshman mentor at college.
Wow.
I started a comedy group with the guys who, with Carrie Kenny and all the guys, David Wayne, Mike Showalter, Michael Ian Black, all the guys who were in the state.
Yeah,
that was my comedy group in college. Cool. So it's like all these like weird intersections with people. Like when I was growing up in Montreal, not growing up in Montreal, when I had to drop out of college at NYU and went to live in Montreal, I worked at a co-op cafe where they had live comic jams that were instigated by this guy who had just started a new comic book company, which was Drawn and Quarterly. So it was like all of these sort of intersections with things. And but one of the things is that when I was going through, so I have all these anecdotes about all these weird things. And then like Rufus Wainwright teaching me how to drive,
Wow.
And then
Loudon's father.
Yeah. Loudon's
the old
son.
Oh, pardon me. Loudon did Dead Skunk in the middle of the road. Yeah. Rufus sang the younger stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting my Wainwrights mixed up. All right, very good.
So anyway, but while I was writing this, I, was looking, I'd be like, I'd always tell a story a certain way. And then I'd look back at like a journal, or I'd talk with a friend from high school and they'd be like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. Or I would have written it down in my journal at the time when I was 16. And it was like, wow, that's not the way I tell that story anymore. But it so happens that my father is a world-renowned neurobiologist.
Wow.
And his specialty is the mechanics of memory, how our brains store long and short-term memory.
Interesting.
How, the mechanics of it, the synapses, how they work.
Wow.
So a quarter of the book is me interviewing my father about the nature of memory, why we remember, why we forget, why it's important, why it's not important, all of these things. So it becomes sort of this tome about memory, art life, and a sort of roadmap to becoming who you are.
Very cool. God damn. I saw it on Amazon. I didn't have a chance to read it, but no, that sounds intriguing. That's terrific.
I think you'll like it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I mean, and again, this is a connection that Shelley and I have, and kind of as opposed to being filmmakers, I think both of us thought we would have careers in music, and that was our original path from high school through college and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that
instead,
was my first career. I don't know if you know, but I was in a punk band in Montreal. So so that's part of it.
I didn't have a chance to look up, is your music online?
Yeah, you can listen to it on iTunes or Spotify, or it's Nerdy Girl or Cecil Castellucci, which is my punk name. So yeah, you can stream away.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. No, I want to hear it. That's excellent. Too much. All right, for our next conversation, that'll be my homework assignment. I got to hear some Cecil Castellucci. That's great. No, really, and honestly, that the again, like you said, the creative people that you've met through your life and stuff, that's all valuable stuff. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So back to Plain Jane's for a second, because am I right? It's like it was like I said, it was a Minx book originally.
Yes.
The rights have gone back to you and Jim.
Yeah, it took me and Jim a long time, but DC gave us the rights back, and because him and I, it was originally supposed to be four books, 4 graphic novels on the Minx line, and we had started writing book 3, and we knew what book 3 and book 4 were, and then the Minx line got canceled, and we never got a chance to finish the story. And for us, the Plain Janes is the story, once again, of art and of becoming an artist. So in book 1 of the Plain Janes, the Janes sort of discover art, and it's the amateur love of art. You do it for fun and whatever. And book 2, Janes in Love, they decide, the town is against them, so they decide to get serious. They get a grant to make like a little art project and whatever. And then we knew book 3 originally was Jane's Go Summer, and it was them going. So each of them were going to go to a camp and train, in their different skill set, and then bring their training back to their art practice. And then book 4, was which now in the Little Brown version of the Plain Janes, it's book 3 and book 4, our original ideas were combined into one, is a new Jane, who we call Pain, comes to town, and she's punk rock, and she's like, you're the establishment and you're mainstream, and that's messed up. And if you really want to be an artist, you got to burn it all down and start again. And just sort of, really, do alternative art to, what it is, make it stand for something. Okay. And so, and all through the book is about art and activism. And so we finally got to finish it over at Little Brown. Thank you very much, Little Brown. And it just came out in January.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Right before the world went to where it is. Yeah. And yeah. So Plain Janes, it's all finished now, and it's in one big omnibus, all 3 books in one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. No, that's terrific, man. No, and like I said, I remember when Shelley started the Minx line, and I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Yeah. And yeah, you guys were kind of ahead of your time in terms of YA comics and everything. And and that's why I'm glad that you guys got the rights back and were able to finish the story.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me and Jim are over the moon about that.
That's excellent. No, that's terrific. I just talked to Jim a month or so ago about Octobriana, his latest
and
Kickstarter.
I can say that's
no problem, buddy.
That is the Plain Janes. That's an original.
Oh, here I'll zoom in on you, and people will see it a little better.
Yeah, that's the Plain Janes. It's from book 1.
Cool.
And it's one of my favorite pages when they're doing one of their first art attacks.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
I always they usually, the artists I work with, they are so kind, and they give me one page, and then I always buy a page too. But Jim is so nice, he never lets me give him money, even though I always try. Always trying to give him money. So I just support all his Kickstarters and stuff.
He literally, I mean, I've known him for years, and yeah, he's one of those creative guys that I've ever encountered. And
he is.
I just love the way his brain works, and that he's always thinking about beyond just great art.
Yeah.
I mean, just the mechanics of how he puts his stuff together. And yeah, Octobriana is another great example of that.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can answer this one. Is it? Okay. Cecil, can you answer me the Batgirl Joker War? What tie-ins are they after Nightwing events or before? I confuse the continuity.
You know what? I have my own ideas about when that happens, but I don't know that I have no idea.
All right. I guess that's a Justinian question.
Yeah, I was told one thing, and I read it, it reads another way, and so I'm with you. I can't answer that, but I would just say my story is in continuity with my character, and that's all I can say.
Okay. Jesse Christian asked a question about Jason Bard that we already covered earlier in the show, Jesse. So I will direct you to rewind the conversation rather than have Cecil repeat herself. But I'm just like looking through now if there are other things that people are asking. Let's see. No, those. Okay, I think we're all caught up as far as that goes.
All right, we're caught up.
So, yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, another a couple things that you've done in the last year or so. I loved, man, I'll tell you, I love these. They just did the summer special for robots. I haven't had a chance to dive into that, and I don't know if you have a story in that, but I really loved last year's Valentine special they did, and you did that great Hawkgirl story. That was really cool, and it was really about Hawkgirl kind of, not being with Carter and kind of having to deal with being on her own. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So, oftentimes when they have these anthologies, they'll email you and say, okay, here's the theme, pitch us a couple of ideas. And I thought it would be really cool to like have a Valentine's Day story that was a Galentine's Day story, that was like about, not romantic love, but about, the love that you have, with your gal pals, and I think that it's her, it's Jessica Cruz and Starfire, and right, and and like I just thought it was like, what if they just have to fight something and then have a beer, which is what I think is like, with my gal pals on Valentine's Day when I'm single, like, that's what I like to do. Fight some monsters, drink some beer. So, so yeah. And I think the value of female friendships and how important that is. And, I always talk about this with my friends, like, no offense to men and husbands and stuff like that, but they can come and go, but your girlfriends, your real true girlfriends, they stay forever, and they're always there, and they know where the bodies are buried, and they know how to pick you up, and they know how far you've grown and come as a person. And so I just wanted to kind of honor that.
The dudes have that too. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, honestly, and that's great.
Of course. And that's what friendship is about, right?
Absolutely.
And so that was really fun.
That's terrific. No, that's great. And I really enjoyed your Aquaman story.
Oh, thank you.
The digital first. Absolutely. That was terrific.
Yeah. So basically it's Aquaman and Mira and the whales, and because I like the environment, like I said, I think that's why I'd be interested in Animal Man or Swamp Thing, but it's like, so it's, sort of about, it's a climate change story basically, and how warmer currents are affecting the oceans, and what would that do to breeding corridors and stuff like that with the whales. And it kind of sort of, ties into, their conversation about should we ever start a family, and obviously we know that they do, but that was it was kind of nice to be able to sort of tie into that sort of, even though it's not necessarily in continuity, to kind of tie into that idea of what's happening now.
But it almost, to me, felt like this was a conversation they had before Mara's like, hey, guess what? It's time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're having a baby. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. No, it's fun. It's really nice to do those little small stories, because, you don't necessarily, get to write every single character. And you certainly don't get a lot of, necessarily shots to play around in that in with those characters and with those universes. And so it's really fun. It's really fun when you get to sort of dip your toe into that. And most of the time they're not in continuity. So it's kind of nice to, kind of play around with that a little bit. I had actually I'd actually done another Aquaman Mira story for Young Romance #1 that they put out a few years ago. That's one of my favorite stories that I've written. It's Mira and Arthur. They're in the lighthouse, and there's a big storm coming, and she finds this pack of old love letters from a woman and a man who had a forbidden love, and so, you know, she sort of reimagines her and Arthur in that situation. And so it's kind of like it's sort of like a Jane Austen, you know, like a Aquaman. So it's
that's awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
That sounds great. That's fantastic. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think the opportunities to tell those self-contained non-continuity stories are great. And those collections, I mean, I don't know what is going to happen in the new normal. Well, really, and I think the clock might even be running with all the Diamond and DC Michigas that's going on, and I have no idea. But I think one of the good solutions are these anthologies, whether they're all one character, like, you know, we got for 750 Wonder Woman and 750 Flash and the Green Lantern 80th anniversary. Right. And are you doing anything for Detective 1027?
No.
Okay. Okay. That's all right. Yeah, whatever. Okay. You know, yeah. Oh wait, what's this now? Could you do a hockey noir opera for boxing?
Oh yeah, so I've written operas as well.
Yes, I wanted to ask about that. Please continue.
Well, you know, boxing isn't my thing, so I don't think I would do.
I think John's doing that for me because I'm a boxing. person.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think I would do it for that. The hockey noir was sort of a very specific thing, and you know, and I'd done a comic. Well, they're both comic book operas. The first one too. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I have to think about it because my composer collaborator and I are thinking about doing a new one, and I have to think about what that might be. But it won't be boxing.
So are they released like when Lemire and Gordy from wasn't it Tragically
Hip?
Yeah. Well, is it like that where there's like an album that accompanies a graphic, you know? I mean, you know, how does that work?
So it was I'll send you a link. I think during COVID they put out the full first opera, which is sort of 4 movements, and it's a kids comic, a superhero comic, a sci-fi comic, and a romance comic.
Wow!
And it's 4 little movements, and I got 4 different comic book artists to. I won't name one of them because he's a horrible person now. But Michael Cho, Scott Campbell, and I'm blanking on the other guy. Pascal Girard, who's a French Canadian artist, and another artist who I'll not name, did the art for it. And it's basically the idea was that, you know, there are projections of the art, and then in operas you have super titles, you know, so that you can read the text, you know, because you can't really understand opera. So the idea of it being captions and balloons that were projected as well. And then the hockey noir was sort of taking that to the next step, where it sort of becomes a 3-dimensional comic book graphic opera. It's not a graphic novel, it's a graphic opera. So you have the actors sort of mimicking what the images look like, and then you have the sort of the captions that sort of help tell the story. Interesting.
Wow, that's very cool. No, when I heard that you had written a couple comic operas like that, it's like, oh, that sounds fascinating. So, geez, let's see. Long Yuen says your Shade the Changing Girl.
Hi.
For Milk Wars is awesome. Very nice.
Thank you. Nice to see you. I loved writing that, and that Wonder Woman thing was really fun because I got to come up with the math for Wonder Woman was every woman plus every woman equals Wonder Woman, because I feel like Wonder Woman is inside every woman. So
that's cool. That's terrific. Yeah. That's a great notion. Ed wants to give you a shout out for Soupy Leaves Home.
Thank you.
And man, are there any Dark Horse projects on the horizon? I'm kind of worried about the health of Dark Horse.
Well, I did just have a book come out on Dark Horse. I don't know if you know that I've been here. I have one here. My Frozen. I wrote
yes, of course.
Frozen graphic novel and Little Mermaid and Snow White. So I just did those, and yeah, to be continued. Not of that, but just wait and see.
Okay, great. Oh, that's good to hear that there's another Dark Horse thing coming. Very good. That's good to hear. Wonderful. See, this is great. Honestly, I'm so glad that things are going well, and I've really enjoyed what I've read of yours so far. And
Thank you.
I have a new recommended reading list to get through of some of this stuff, including Girl on Film. I think that sounds incredibly intriguing.
I think you're gonna like it a lot. I think it's really up your alley. I'm so proud of it. It seemed kind of weird. That came out on Boom, and it seemed kind of weird that when Sierra Hahn, my editor, was like, "Do you want to write a memoir?" I was like, "Ooh, well, who cares about me?" And then when I started thinking about this sort of art life, and all these intersections with all these stories that I had, where I intersected with people who were sort of part of pop culture, who became a part of pop culture. I started thinking, oh, maybe there is something there, because I'm my own artist as well, and so yeah.
Are you doing any panels for this DC fandom?
Yeah.
Thing coming? Oh, very good.
Yeah. I did one, a Batman one, Bat thing.
The Bat universe, basically.
Bat thing, yeah. And then the Bat folk. And then speaking of Bat folk, me and Sarah Kuhn, who wrote Shadow of Batgirl, the Cass Kane young adult book, her and I have like a little master class that we did.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if those are announced yet, so I may have just messed everything up. But
well, that's again, we want people to watch your stuff. That's all right. Yeah. Nobody from DC is watching. That's all right. I was gonna.
If they are, I think it's coming pretty soon. Fandom, right?
Yeah, actually, just in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, because I'm doing Mainframe Comic-Con the week before. So yeah, I think it's the weekend after. I think it's the 22nd and 23rd. So that's cool. And I think we mentioned, I think you and I were talking about before we started broadcasting, Comic-Con at Home. You did that Batgirl, the various Batwomen.
Yeah. So Batgirls. Yeah. So everybody always thinks of Barbara Gordon, but obviously there's Stephanie Brown, there's Cass Kane, and there's Oracle, the character, when Babs is in the chair, and also Batwoman. And so I thought, I pitched the panel to Comic-Con at Home. I thought it would be really interesting to have a conversation with different people who write those different Batgirls, to have a conversation about, how they're all different, and how, what's alike about them and what's different about them, and how vital they all are to the Bat family, and how different they all are than the boys in the Bat family.
Agreed. No, I think so. And I think as more women have written them as well, they've only evolved into more deeper characters and stuff. Yeah. And I think they've become more interesting characters. I still haven't seen Birds of Prey. Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
And?
I liked it. I mean, look, anytime there's a fight where a girl hands another girl a hair tie, I mean, I'm like, that's the reality. And it's those little things that just made me love it.
All right, that's cool. Hilarious.
I mean, obviously, when there's Birds of Prey, I wish that Barbara was there, but I'm glad that Cass was there.
Yeah. No, and I'm hearing that's a different kind of take on Cassandra, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It's thoroughly enjoyable and highly recommended.
That's excellent. That's very cool. Very good. Hey, you're welcome back. I honestly, I hope you will come back, because
I will. I'm a chatty Cathy. I mean, obviously, I got lots of things to talk about.
That's good. Hey, what are you talking about? It's a podcast. It's a talk show. We welcome chatty Cathys and chatty Kevins, or whatever the male equivalent is. No, that's great, Cece. Honestly, it's a pleasure getting to know you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
Thank you for coming on.
And thank you to everybody who came and asked such great questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. All the best. All right. Cecil Castellucci, everybody. It's a pleasure talking to Cece, and I thank you for joining us today on Word Balloon Live. Tomorrow, Steve Orlando will be joining us, talking about some of his current and upcoming projects. It's a busy week for Word Balloon. Who's on Wednesday? Right now I'm blanking like an idiot. I got it on my calendar. All right, trust me on tomorrow, and then I'll have my shit together to tell you more about the week. And Gabe Hardman's coming on Thursday to talk about The Outer Limits. We're going to do a rewatch of the first season of The Outer Limits. So lots of fun stuff coming up this week on Word Balloon Live. This conversation will be coming up probably tomorrow on the audio version. So thank you for watching. And if you missed any of it, you can rewind or catch the audio version tomorrow. Everybody take care.